Hi green lovers! So I'm about to plant all my winter squash. I decided to do this on this bed that I'm in the process of building. Eventually I'm going to fill this place out with some native plants, but for now I've got a lot of empty space, open space, and that is not a good thing for the soil. It needs to be covered, and what better thing to cover soil than winter squash? I wanted to show you really quickly how I set up my irrigation. So this is drip irrigation, and remember that winter squash, or any kind of squash for that matter, is really thirsty, so it does need quite a bit of water. So I have installed drip irrigation, and I made it with this little collar. So this is 6-inch emitter tubing, so one little emitter every 6 inches along this tube. I cut a circular length. It's got about 5 in it, and I connected it with a T connector to a little piece of 1/4-inch black tubing, ran it down. Here's the next one. This connector here is a 4-way connector, so the tube runs through this and then it goes all the way to the distribution tube over there. So that way this is going to get plenty of water, I hope, and we'll see how it goes. Also, I'm sitting underneath some shade cloth. It has been super hot. This is the month of June, almost July. It's June 28th, and it's getting hot. The days are easily in the mid-90s every day. And yeah, young plants do not like being burned on their first day outside in the soil. So I am going to be setting it under this shade cloth, and once these things are kind of settled in and starting to grow nicely, I will remove the shade cloth and let them do their thing. And by the way, each of these little holes that I have prepped, I've got really hard clay soil, and that was what was in here, so I dug out about maybe 12 to 18 inches a hole, and about maybe 12 inches across, and I filled it with a mixture of compost and clay, mixed them both together, threw in some alfalfa pellets, and then with each plant that I'm going to put in the soil, I'm also going to put a handful of organic granular fertilizer. This is what I'm using, so that will hopefully give it enough nutrition at least to go for a while. So here's what I'm going to be planting. This here is spaghetti squash. I've got some rich sweetness 132 melon, and I've got some butternut squash, and I think that's about it that I've got here. So these 3 types of winter squash and melon is what I'm going to be planting. Let's plant the first one. Okay, so I removed my collar, and I'm going to be putting a handful of granular fertilizer in this hole. Now remember that squash and melons are one of those plants that really do not require you to completely have decomposed compost. In fact, you see these growing easily in your compost pile. But I am going to mix in this granulated fertilizer really well, because you don't want to put the plant directly on the fertilizer. Let's go ahead and get our plant. Loosen it up just a little bit all around. This is a spaghetti squash. I'm going to use both hands to get it out of this, because I got to be careful. So turning the camera off for just a second. And really nice, not root bound or anything, so I can just drop this thing in here. Oops, I hope I didn't damage anything. I did that a little roughly with one hand. Cover it up. Replace the collar gently around it. I'm going to actually move this collar so that the drip is right about where the root is, and then as the plant grows and establishes and its roots grow deeper and start to spread, I can adjust the collar again. But for now, I want one of these emitters right by the root. And that's it. My little butternut squash is planted, and I'm going to go ahead and do the rest. Okay, so my squash and my melons are all planted up. And one thing that I forgot to mention earlier was you might need to put something like this around it. Now these are really tasty morsels for squirrels and all kinds of rodents, rats and things like that. So if you've got any of those in your backyard, like I do, plenty, you do want to cover it up. I've got this little metal trash basket that I flip upside down. Got that from the dollar store, or you can make something like this yourself. Get some fencing wire and twist it around and make this and protect it. I also sprinkled a few granules of Sluggo Plus. I have a problem with roly-polies as well, and these are like prime food for roly-polies. So if I don't do that, I don't stand a chance of having any melons or squash whatsoever. So this will go on for a few days while the plants establish themselves. I'll make sure I've got those granules, and then in about a week or so it'll start growing rapidly, and then the roly-polies just won't be interested anymore. Right now, because they're transplanted, they're kind of weak. Pests will get to them, so you got to do a little something to protect your young plants. Anyway, I wanted to show you this sort of quick little hack thing on how to get enough water in your drip irrigation to your plant, and I hope it's helpful. If you're going to try it, or if you got any other great ideas on how to make sure that your squash plants are properly deeply watered, especially during drought, do leave some ideas down below in the comments. Until next time, folks, live green and love your greens.